people on the internet, summer's almost over, but since I am a no-life loser with no life, reading is still the most important thing going on. Let's go through my TBR for the rest of August or the rest of summer. I'm in my mind, summer is still going. I'm starting school at or continuing school at the last week of August, so until then, summer's still going in my mind. If you are wondering, Emma, did you continue to your master's program directly after your undergrad so you could avoid the real world and a real job as long as possible? The answer is absolutely yes. So let's go through my TBR. I have a few library loans and a few books from my physical TBR. If you miraculously watched my last reading log, that was a bit of a failure, so I was trying to switch my screen time to my reading time. So no such hubris will be included in the making of this video. The only goal is to read these books by the end of August, so I have about a month to read these books, which I think is somewhat realistic, but I am still trying to challenge myself with some of these picks and the time frame. You'll see what I mean. So, quick update on my book buying ban. It's been going swimmingly. It's August and I've only bought one book this year, and that was for school, which was in the limits of the ban. I'm feeling quite proud of myself. I have a lot of books on my wish list, and we'll see if I'll buy any of them by the end of the year. However, I've acquired another addiction, and that is library loans. I've always used the library ever since I started reading, but especially this year, when I can't buy books, I just loan them at the library or reserve them. And usually I always have at least like 3 loans at a time, which means that even though I'm reading a lot, I have made very little progress on the unread books on my own shelves, which was kind of the whole goal of this book buying ban. So, you know, you win some, you lose some, I guess. Yeah, maybe next year. Honestly, I don't know if anyone else is feeling this way. Something about this summer and this year, I've been doing it with my left hand, if you know what I mean. Like, it's really not, it did not live up to my very romanticized expectations, especially this summer. Bit of a fail, but you know what? We'll try next year, and maybe, you know, this fall, this autumn is when we'll really make a comeback. Until then, let's talk about what we're gonna read in August, folks. So here's my stack. We have 5 books on the stack. Let's go through the library loans first, since those are going to be kind of priority. I think I have most of the month to read them, but you know. First we have Human Acts by Hong Kong, which won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 2024. I have, from Hong Kong, I've read The Vegetarian, which I enjoyed. Haven't read anything by her since, so, and I don't read a lot of Nobel Prize winners. I read some Toni Morrison, but that's about it, so let me get more educated by reading this book. Second library loan is Rogue by Mona Awad. She has written the book Bunny that was viral a couple of years ago. Haven't read that one either, but this is a horror novel, at least it says on the library tab. I don't read a lot of horror, and I don't know what this is about. The cover just looks really, really nice, which honestly, when it comes to library loans, a lot of the time it's either a really anticipated release that I have to wait for, or I just go to the fiction section and just pick out things that look interesting by the cover. So there's Murder, Southern California, Death. I think there's some kinky shit in here, maybe. Sounds really exciting. This is probably what I'm gonna start with. I've been reading a lot of like autofiction and very lyrical literary fiction, so I just want a good old novel with fucking dialogue and characters and a normal plot progression. You know what I mean? Like, I enjoy that very lyrical litfic, but sometimes I just need, I crave the structure. So this is what we're going to start with, I think. And the last library loan we have is The House of Hidden Meanings by none other than RuPaul Charles. I've watched RuPaul's Drag Race for a good decade now. I can't say I'm necessarily a fan of RuPaul, but I do admire everything he's accomplished in his life and how far he's come and how he is such a cultural icon. So this is his memoir. Haven't heard anything about it, don't know what people think of it, but I'm excited to learn more about his story. Then we have the 2 picks from my own personal library. We have Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. I have seen the movie adaptation and I do adore it, and I have read the other novels by Gillian Flynn, Sharp Objects being one of my favorite novels of all time. So this is kind of weird getting into this, but I'm kind of balancing it with these few other picks, thinking that this will be maybe faster for me to get through since I've already seen a screen adaptation of it, if that makes sense. Or we can compare and contrast, But excited to get into another Flynn novel and complete I think she has 3 novels all in all, and I have completed my collection. Right, and the last work we have is, I think this will be a nice ending to a summer. A good summer book is Emma by Jane Austen. The only other Austen work I have read is Pride and Prejudice, and that was some years ago. But I've heard that people regard this as one of her most lighthearted and funny works, more satirical. I mean, she's always very funny and poking fun at society and whatnot in her writing, but this one especially. I have this very nice edition that I thrifted a couple of years ago. Gotta throw a classic in there every once in a while. But this is the stack, right? Like I said, the only goal is to read all of these by the end of August. So we have plenty of time to read. Speaking of RuPaul, how about that All-Stars 10 season, huh? This is the thing when you're the only person in your circle who watches things. A lot of the other people I know watch Love Island. I don't watch that. I watched All Stars 10 and I have no one to talk to about it. What a weird season. It started out... No one cares, and I'm still going to talk about it. The beginning was so strong, and I feel like they had a lot of good story beats with Irene getting her redemption, Bosco being beautiful and very talented, Aja dominating as well. And then the second bracket, we have
Nicole Paige Brooks.
Enough said, and then we had the drama with Mistress and Georges and the boys. It was really cooking. And then we get to the third bracket. And now, this is a very heavily produced TV series. We all know this. So I feel like it's fair to speculate that we can kind of read the reading on the wall that Ginger was kind of produced to win. Yes, she is very talented, right? But it was she got a lot of helping hands along the way, and I feel like especially the way the brackets were set up and the challenges in that third bracket specifically and the judging, it was you can see some of the queens' faces during the judging, and I feel like they're kind of clocking what's going on there, and it's so saddening because there's a lot of great queens there, and I love pretty much all the queens in every bracket, and I feel like all of them could have had something to offer, but it just doesn't feel earned. And I'm happy for Ginger, but I mean I've been saying this for a while, but I feel like All Stars needs to take 4 years off between every season, because that's how they got that hype around season 2, right? But now they're coming in every year. It's no point. Queens are there for 4 times. What are we doing? I was really getting back into Drag Race with, the beginning of that season. I was like, okay, we're so back. And then we go into literally the lowest rated episode of Drag Race with the finale. What was that? I was watching that shit in horror. Bosco delivering an amazing lip sync. Then she doesn't even get to sit down, and then she has to... Oh, what are we doing? And the lip sync songs, most of the lip sync songs during the season, I felt like were these mid-tempo pop beats.
What do you think of this song?
Love Pink.
That you can really make a good performance with. What are we doing? Anyway, no one cares. I'll see you sometime.
Typical guy response. Worship Kerouac and Bukowski. God forbid you'd pick up anything by Jane Austen.
Hey, I've read Jane Austen.
You have?
Yeah, and I think she would have liked Bukowski.
Books is another few days later, and I just finished reading Rogue by Mona Awad. What a ride this was, honestly. My thoughts about this being similar to The Substance was sort of right, but also not. It turns out that this really creepy spa, cultish spa, main character was going to. Turns out the leaders there were providing these treatments to these people. They would look otherworldly beautiful afterwards, but the trick was that they would lose some of their memories, and the end goal for these people was to very finely and bloodily eat the souls of these people that they were treating. But spoilers ahead, our main character ends this story somewhat happily and wishfully, and she ends up actually in a very strange way also reconciling her relationship with her mom. All around great. One detail that I kind of loved about the story was that the main character Mirabelle, the story has a lot of flashbacks to her youth, and in her youth she would, without her mom's permission, go to her mom's room where there was this mirror, and in that mirror she would talk to her kind of imaginary friend, and her imaginary friend is Tom Cruise, because she grew up in the 80s and 90s and she had a big crush on Tom Cruise and watched all his movies and wanted to be with him. So this childhood friend is above all thinks she's very beautiful, which she is insecure about, and hates her mom, which she is also insecure about. So he's the perfect guy. It turns out that this whole imaginary friend is kind of, it's very like seeped in metaphor. Like I was thinking, okay, it's the kind of the embodiment of all of her insecurities, like I said, and it's a mirror, so it's reflecting all of her bad thoughts back to her. And even though she blames this imaginary friend for ruining a lot of aspects of her life, because it is a mirror, it's just reflecting her own actions back to her, so she's the reason for her own downfall. But then there's little glimpses of vocalization through the mom, who is like, oh, that's another predator, like sniffing after my daughter. That'll happen to her all her life. I feel very sorry for her. So I'm like, okay, is this... She sees him as Tom Cruise and calls him Tom, but then his imaginary friend always reminds him, no, it's Seth. I'm Seth, right? And then they go back, and the main character is like, oh, yeah, Seth, Tom, Seth, whatever. So I'm like, okay, was this like an older man taking advantage of her? And, you know, adults taking advantage of children can be those types of mirrors where they confirm and reaffirm all of the child's insecurities to assert themselves into their life, since they're kind of fixing them, you know. So it could be many things, and I thought that was interesting. In the end, this Seth character ends up being one of the members of the cult, and like the most esteemed member of the cult. He comes in at one of the last scenes when Mirabelle is about to go through the process where her soul is eaten, but she's very confused because they keep taking her memories, and the beauty of the members of the cult makes you kind of forget all the horror you're going through. So Seth comes in to this table, and as they're about to feast on someone's soul, and there was something so funny about the way he is described when he enters. So they're in this very creepy room. The members of the cult are around a table, and then the people that are about to be sacrificed are all looking at these trays that are mirrors, because they've gone through the last like facial procedure, so they look very beautiful and they can't look away, except the main character. She's like purposefully not looking at the tray because she knows that if she starts, she can't stop. Even though her memories are removed, she immediately recognizes Tom when he comes in. All is dead silent again. All the veiled ones look at me. Hands stop clapping. The Queen of Snow's face changes from murder to surprise. The man who I call Tom stops walking to his throne, pauses in mid-step. I stare at the back of his white neck, a pale, smooth slash between the color of his black suit and his wavering dark hair. I stare so hard, salt water drips from my eyes. Tom Cruise, I whisper. It's so funny. And the members of the cult applaud Seth for being able to mask himself as Tom Cruise to better infiltrate our main character and like kind of groom her to be a perfect sacrifice member for the cult, because she has all these insecurities and bad memories that she wants to remove. So when she goes into the procedure and they say, we will take some of your memories, is that okay? Because she's been so traumatized, and Seth has kind of helped along with that, she is a great candidate because she says, yes, take my memories and further remove my soul to be eaten, you know? But she ends up escaping, and the guy that kissed her in the beginning, that ends up being this detective called Hot Hudson, who lost his brother to the cult, so he's trying to save Mirabelle as well. Yeah, the overall tone of this book is so like, it's very dreamy. You kind of feel like you're losing it a little bit, because as she forgets her memory, she also starts forgetting the names for some things, just some phrases, and she does this a lot, but the things she replaces names with seem very purposeful, so I'm assuming that tells me that the tone of this book was very purposeful, because she says, and I killed him. No, I kissed him. I kissed him. I killed him right on the mouth. No, I kissed him right on the mouth. Or my sin was so gleaming. No, my skin was so gleaming. You know, all these things that she replaces things with in her mind seem very purposeful to the themes. Yeah, I quite enjoyed it. I was kind of thinking that she wasn't gonna escape her fate, but it ends quite happily. Or as happily as a beauty-seeking, soul-eating story about a death cult can. Great stuff all around. I was actually out of the country for a little bit there, so I didn't get any reading done because I was out of the country for a wedding. I did get a few bookmarks though. Didn't get any books. I was very tempted, but I got 2 bookmarks at the. They have a lot of tourist shops in Dublin. I went to Dublin, and I got a bookmark because these were 70 cents or something. So I was like, okay, this is something I can budget friendly that I can get myself. That is not a book. They had a lot of like Irish writers there, so I got Jonathan Swift. His Modest Proposal is a favorite of mine, so I got him. And then this is just I got for free at a bookstore from Dubray, I think. Just a penguin bookmark, very nice. They had Oscar Wilde in there too, which I went with my man Jonathan Swift this time.
Ja, du bist langweilig. Kann doch diese Wohnung nicht dem Chaos preisgeben.
Das Chaos ist immer nicht mehr deine Sache. Ich behalte die Pflanzen, ich behalte die Katzen.
Apropos Katze.
Ja?
Wieder vergessen.
Hello again. It's a few days later. I just finished the RuPaul memoir, The House of Hidden Meetings, and it's a memoir. One of the memoirs of all time. It's a very basic, run-of-the-mill celebrity memoir, if you know what I mean. Like it's nice. It's about the time from RuPaul's childhood to his club kid days to his more like shaping relationships of his youth, and to the point where he kind of nailed down his style of drag that actually put him on the map, because he describes that he was a club kid and he did like very gender bending drag, and then he chose kind of meticulously this blend of popular female singers and celebrities of the time and made drag very family friendly in his own words, which is why he became successful, right? But yeah, nothing crazy. The writing style I thought was nice, but nothing like super memorable. It's pretty short, so a lot of the folks that he mentions don't really stay long, so I don't really remember any characters specifically, but you know, it was nice. It was nice, and I was done. That's pretty much all I have to say. I've been reading Human Acts by Hong Kong. A few days ago, I went to the study room in my library, which I love, like the Silent 24 study space, and read a little bit of this. So right now, I'm on page 63, and this is around 220 pages, so a fourth of the way through about. But look what, I returned some books today to the library, and look what was waiting on me at the reserved pile. It's Sunrise and the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. I've been waiting on this for a long time at the library, and honestly, I was prepared to not be able to read this until like next year or something, because when I started my reservation, I was on like place 90 or something, I want to say. But now I got it. I feel like a lot of people maybe dropped out of the line or something, but we'll see if I'll have time to add this to the August TBR, because I do really want to read the books that I have, so we'll see. And this looks really big and it looks really chunky, but when I opened it, it's like less than 400 pages, and when you look at it, like the margins are pretty crazy. So in actuality, this would probably be closer to like 300 full pages, you know, so this will probably be a fast read. I like the Hunger Games series. I really enjoyed the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I had to think about it for a while, which I read at the beginning of 2024, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, I'm excited to read this. The movie is already in the making. The cast list, from what I've seen from the rollout, is pretty crazy, so yeah, excited to jump back into a beloved series. I don't know, for the longest time, I'm not like super deep in the Hunger Games fandom, but for the longest time, this was kind of like a very big fan thing, I feel like. Like, you have that fan movie on, I think it's on YouTube, that fans made of Hamish's games, and Hamish is kind of a fan favorite, so I feel like this was like, it feels very fanficky that this is a real book, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like this would be a fan fiction. So it's kind of crazy that Susan wrote this, but I'm hoping for a good time, some good political commentary. You know who we're talking about. Also, walked by the bookstore today, and Medranda came out with a new book. I think it's sci-fi. I'll have to check that out. I've been listening to the Ethel Cain album, the new Ethel Cain album. Absolutely devastating. Is Nettles her best song? I really like her unreleased song Tongue. That's probably my favorite. I also love Crush, as does everybody. But Nettles is really great. Das Bow is also great. Like all around, just incredible production on the album. Just Willoughby's theme is also amazing. Just really beautiful all around. So I've been listening to that on repeat. I'll put that on first thing in the morning, being like, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. One thing I've been doing is I finally found a frame big enough for my puzzle that I thrifted a few months ago that's Peanuts themed, and it's like small, really small, different colored Peanuts strips that together make this big picture of Snoopy. And I'm trying to, it's 1,000 pieces. I'm doing it right now. I just got like the outer edge done, and it's really hard because a lot of them are repeats of the same picture, but just in a slightly different position, so it takes you forever to figure out which specific repeat goes where. But I've been watching YouTube and The Office in the background. Sometimes just doing that in silence. Honestly, my best progress I made on the puzzle I did when I just didn't watch anything in the background. So maybe I should just do that actually, like a normal person, instead of double tasking everything I'm doing all the time. I'll probably finish Human Act soon. It's very short, but it takes place in the 1980s in Gwangju in South Korea during a student uprising, told through perspective. And for the first chapter, I'm on the second chapter now, but the first chapter was about a boy who kind of finds himself working during the uprising, like taking care of the bodies of civilians mostly that have been killed during the uprising, and like finding a place for them, cleaning them, keeping a book of them so people can come and find their loved ones and grieve for them. And then the second chapter is told through the perspective of his friend that he was looking for, who died, and his soul is kind of still sticking to his body. And the way Kang describes a soul like feeling disgusted that he is a body and he can't quite escape to the other realm yet, and then that people are just like the disease in a situation like this, sometimes you just like bodies get piled up on one another, and it's quite drastic. But I like Kang's style. The translator is Deborah Smith, and I found translator's note in the beginning to be pretty illuminating of, because you think a lot about translating, because now I've been reading a lot in English and in the source language, but I do mostly read like translated fiction since my first language is in English. So it's interesting to think about the life of a translator, the work of a translator, and how, for example, when Deborah Smith mentioned that in translating a specific dialect in a foreign language, for example, can be very difficult, because you can never quite, in a translation, you can very rarely like explain through the language used what that language signals in the culture. There's a similar case with the Finnish novel Unknown Soldier, which uses a lot of Finnish regional accents. And as we all know, sociolinguistically, like different accents in a specific culture can tell you instantly through dialogue where someone is from, what their class background probably is, what they're like, what their humor is like, without the other using exposition. But it's hard to do that in translation. Like in this case, you'll have to use again, translator's choice there, but you can use like different variation in accents in the language that you're translating to express, this is a different dialect that's being spoken right now. But you can never deliver those same messages quite clearly as in the original language. It's so interesting to me. Another reason for me to actually learn another language, so I could read in more languages in the source material, in the original text, right? There's something so tragic about never being able to grasp a piece of literature in the way it was originally designed and like written, because you don't speak the original language. Translators are troopers, they really are. Yep, that's it.
And she's reading again. How novel.
Goodbye, Tristan.
Well, did you get the novel thing? Because
I said goodbye.
This is the 31st of August. I did see Udabra in concert, which was pretty great. They played Shanghai Lights, which was life-changing. And I started school this week, which was great. But this means that we have to end the video because it is the last day. And I almost read everything. Didn't finish Emma though. I'm still in the beginnings of this because I randomly started the Hunger Games book and then I stuck with it. But yeah, let's talk about the books that I read. We'll talk about my next reading plans for fall because tomorrow it is officially fall because September starts. The next book I finished was Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn, and honestly this is probably my new favorite from the video. This was such a fun time. Like I mentioned in the beginning, the hair is crazy. This is what happens, like I have my hair in like a bun and it like anyway not that this video is professional anyway, so who cares, but anyway, this was probably the most fun book I read, which you might be looking at, you know, Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn, and you're like, how is this thriller about a woman faking her death and framing her husband for it fun? And I gotta say, it's Gillian's style. Gillian Flynn has this really dark humor, and the way she conveys it through her writing, it just tickles me pink. It's just so entertaining to read. And I actually liked this experience more than film adaptation in a way, because here you get to be in the characters' heads, which I really appreciated. There's something about, I kept underlining so many parts in this book because there's something about, especially Nick's point of view, that is so interesting for me to read, and the way he is simultaneously aware of his misogynistic tendencies, but also he falls back to them all the time. It's so interesting to read about. There's themes that come up again and again in this book, and I mean, if you're in the literary space, you probably know that this novel from Flynn in particular has become a big text in the feminist literary analysis community. I haven't read a lot of critical essays about it. I'd love to get into that after reading this now, but especially after the movie adaptation. If you know, you know, this book and the movie has the cool girl monologue.
Cool girl. Men always use that, don't they? As their defining compliment.
In which Amy Dunn and Flynn inadvertently makes the great analysis of this type of woman that exists in our world, the cool girl who men think exists but is entirely a creation of a woman who is trying to fight for male validation and attention. The cool girl is a combination of all perceived male interests in a woman. You know, she's funny but not strict. She eats a lot, but she's still skinny. She loves sexual acts, but mainly focuses on the man's pleasure and all this kind of stuff. Like, she's a fantasy. Kind of like a pair to the Manic Pixie Dream Girl, which is another archetype in media. It was great to read. There's so much more to this book than that monologue, but it was great to see where it all came from. And I loved the other part of that monologue, which is, I think, in one of the first, after she has explained her grievances with this type of cool girl archetype. I waited patiently, years, for the pendulum to swing the other way, for men to start reading Jane Austen, learn how to knit, pretend to love Cosmos, organize scrapbook parties, and make out with each other while we leer. And then we'd say, oh, yeah, he's a cool guy. But it never happened. Instead, women across the nation colluded in our degradation. Pretty soon, cool girl became the standard girl. Men believed she existed. She wasn't just a dream girl, one in a million. Every girl was supposed to be this girl, and if you weren't, then there was something wrong with you. I think this is so interesting now in 2025, when I think this pendulum is kind of swinging the other way, where the whole concept of the performative man, if you're chronically online like me, you've probably seen this trend where women have clocked this performative man archetype. So a guy who, kind of similar to the cool girl in this idea, pretends to like predominantly female-liked interests to attract female validation and attention, right? So like the pair to the cool girl, I don't know, it's really interesting to think about how it's not the same force as cool girls, I would say, but it is kind of a marker to that direction. So it's really interesting to see the evolution there. Like I've said, I love Flynn's writing. Now I've read all of her novels. I need her to make a comeback desperately. I think, I don't know what it would be about, but I would love to read some of her writing again. This was an absolute blast. The end is so thrilling because Amy kind of successfully baby traps Nick, because her whole organization of this crime ends up in the end kind of being successful, where she finds another man to frame instead of Nick. Nick knows that she orchestrated this whole disappearance as a way to get back to him. He can never prove it. There's one cop that believes him, but they don't have enough evidence to prove this otherwise. And, you know, media loves the victim white woman narrative. So, like, she has a lot of ammunition in that department as well. But in the end, Nick is like, I'm gonna catch her. I'm gonna catch her in a lie. I'm gonna catch her I'm gonna get a confession out of her. I'm gonna be an inside agent in my own home, in my own marriage. It's revealed that she's pregnant, so he decides to stay because he's like, I can't let her raise the baby alone. By the way, it's actually kind of crazy, and the last chapter is Amy's chapter, and it's kind of haunting. Amy says, "My gosh, Nick, why are you so wonderful to me?" He was supposed to say, "You deserve it. I love you," but he said, "Because I feel sorry for you." Why? Because every morning you have to wake up and be you. Yeesh. Great tension, a lot of humor, makes me appreciate the film adaptation more. So much fun. Such a page turner, would recommend. And then the next book I finished was Human Acts by Hong Kong. I did kind of mischaracterize this book or explain it incorrectly in a way. It is about the Gwangju uprising in South Korea in the 1980s. That one was about true, but it is centered around the central character Dong Ho, who I interpret is in the cover, who was kind of this marker of innocence and hope, and who was a civilian helping during the uprising. He was helping with the dead, and you know, he helped catalog the dead and keep track of them, trying to get them to their families, and he was killed by the military. And all of the other chapters are about different characters' point of view. All of them are somehow connected to Dong Ho, loosely or more closely. All of the chapters are about their experience during and after the riots. You know, some of them have been prisoners because they helped in the uprising, and then got brutally tortured in prison afterwards. Some were activists all their lives. Some were too scared to participate. One of the chapters is Dong Ho's mother. And then the last chapter is called Epilogue the Writer, and it is Hong Kong's experience being young when the riots happened or the uprising happened, and then kind of experiencing the hushed tones adults around her talked about it all throughout her life. And then she found out about Dong Ho, or I'm still kind of, it's more vague. I think Dong Ho was maybe a real person or based on a real person that she found herself connected to and researched about, and then was given permission by the person's family to write about him, to preserve his memory. So Dong Ho may be a representation of a real person or a bunch of real people during the uprising representing like a bigger mass. But regardless, Hong Kong had a very like a personal connection to the source material. So the book is from multiple points of view in multiple timelines, and it's very told in fractions. So for me, I completely understand. I think the literary merit and the substance matter is totally there for this to get the Nobel Prize. It makes complete sense to me. But I found it hard to follow. I mean, this does happen for me when I'm reading English sometimes. In translation especially, it can be hard for me to, there's multiple timelines and points of view happening in the same chapter. Especially, it can be hard for me to like understand where the vocalization is coming through and like who's speaking when. So that was something that was hard for me, but I do think it was intentional some of the time. But again, I talked about the translation, the difficulty of staying true to source material in translation earlier, and that ended up being true here, or that's how I felt. But still, it was a great experience, very harrowing images in here. It was about a time in history or a part of history that I didn't know previously, so I do like learning something new through fiction. I think that's really cool, but I had a hard time maybe connecting with this. But again, a very different book from what I've been reading recently. And the last book I finished was Sunrise on the Reaping. I finished this yesterday. And this was a really quick read. I feel kind of conflicted about this because I do think it's a good book. Collins is a good writer. She's really good at making you feel connected to characters. But I feel conflicted because I don't know if it was Collins herself who said this or someone said it about her, that she only writes when she has something to say. And I was reading this and I was enjoying it, but then I was like, is this saying anything new? Like, again, it's a good book. It shows you very harrowing images of violence in between reality TV drama. That's what Collins has said has inspired her before. So I don't think there was anything new in that sense. Again, we kind of know the outcome. This book is basically explaining you why Haymitch drinks. Truly everything bad that can happen to a person happens to him. There's no rest for him. He loses absolutely everything because of the games. He loses everything because he wants to make a change. The world punishes him for trying to change the status quo, which is a really great message, but again, not necessarily something that the Hunger Games hasn't explored before. I did like Haymitch as a narrator. He is very fun, but also deeply insecure and self-reflective, which I thought was interesting. He doubts himself constantly throughout this book. Similar to Peta in a sense, he is aware of his image in the games, and he tries to purposefully create an image to protect himself, because he's a mix of Katniss and Peta in the sense that he is both wants to make that change, but also tries to protect himself through image. So he's punished like double bad. This book also uses the poem The Raven in a great way. I mean, that's, has been used in literature so much and referenced so much, but I thought it was used very well since all of the Hunger Games books love birds. And I think Collins is good with intertextuality, especially in The Songbirds and Snakes. And here too, you get the haunting connection to birds and Lenore Dove with the Raven in Nevermore. I thought that was really well done. The vibes in the last chapter before the epilogue are absolutely haunting and atrocious. Haymitch says verbatim, "I have nothing to live for." There's so many haunting images in this in particular that for some reason stuck with me, and that gave me pause during reading. And I won't go too in depth, but they're of people, the brutal ways people die in the games. Like, we know the Hunger Games are brutal, but especially in this. And I will mention this one because this one probably stopped me the most. So after Haymitch has won, he is still chained to the train to go back to District 12. The train doesn't leave the station of Capital for a while, and he's like, wait, why are we not leaving? After a couple of hours, a peacekeeper comes in with a roll and a carton of milk, still on the snow diet. "Why aren't we moving?" I ask. "Been waiting for your friends," he replies with a nod to the window, then goes, "My friends? I have no friends here. Does he mean my team?" I look out the window of my cell. 3 cars are being rolled down the platform. Each carries a plain wooden box. After a momentary confusion, I put it together. They are coffins. Luella, Maisley, and Wyatt will be riding home with me. I thought them long buried, peacefully resting in their family plots on the hill in District 12. Instead, we will finish this journey together. There was something, and then, I don't know, yeah, just a lot of haunting images. But again, I feel conflicted because this is like a good young adult sci-fi. A good young adult dystopia, but on the measurement of Suzanne Collins isn't saying anything new. Maybe not, but it's a good time. It's a good time, and I feel this is always the feeling I have when reading the Hunger Games. I'm like, I'm being entertained by the games here. And then then I don't know what to make of that. So yeah, did not finish Emma, and I'm so sorry. I feel like a failure, but I did. This was an extra, so I will try and finish this next. But I feel pressure because I have other books that I need to read that are not my own, that are for a different project. I'm in the beginnings of this, but this seems very fun. This seems very fun. I'm reading this in Finnish for a change, which is really nice. But I'll be slowly making my way through this in September. Yeah, so I'm part of this project where I need to read a lot of new Finnish releases. So I have a big stack of, hold on. Okay, so I have, what I'll be prioritizing the most are these 10 new Finnish releases that I have. So there's crime, there's lit fake, there's young adult, there's all kinds of stuff in there. I won't be making content about that, but yeah, that's kind of on my mind. That's what I have to finish. Then I'm gonna have, the new semester is starting, so I'll have some books for school that I need to read soon. The library host came in that I also have to read. I got The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. Trying to make through her catalog. Yep, this is her debut. Then No One Is Talking About This by Patricia Lockwood. Saw this in a recommendation. Seems interesting. It's called A Modern Classic, which is... When did this come out? That's a big claim. 2021. Okay. I like going into books not knowing anything. And then the third book in the Legendborn cycle, Oathbound. I finally got this from the library. I've been anxious to start this because I don't know when the fourth book is coming out. I do still have to read this because I think someone has preserved this after me. And I am excited to read it, but at the same time, I'm like, how long will I have to wait for the last book? This is a tome. It's over 600 pages. Brie Matthews, You Will Always Be Famous. Those are my reading plans. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm trying to come up with new content to make. I think I'm more interested in making sit-down videos like the zombie video that I made. If you watched that, like focused on one topic. I want to get better at editing. I'm so sorry if the sound is fucked up. I'm trying to work on that. It's hard not understanding this stuff, but I'm trying to get better. But yeah, I'm trying to come up with topics for a sit-down video that I could make about a topic I'm interested in. I'm tempted to make a video about The Summer I Turned Pretty once the season airs fully, because it's a show I've been watching and for some reason I'm so interested in it. I don't know why, but I feel like everyone and their mom is gonna make a video about that show once it stops airing, so I want to say something. I don't want to like be influenced by what other people say, but I don't want to talk in a vacuum, so we'll see. But again, thank you for watching this video. I'll see you sometime.
Let me tell you something else.